Norwegians have always had a desire to see the world. Several of the great 20th century polar explorers were Norwegians. Thor Heyerdahl followed this Norwegian tradition of exploration. More recently, Børge Ausland has tested human limits on his solitary expeditions. Norwegian artists have also made their way abroad. For such a small country, a large number of artists have won international renown in the fields of literature, pictorial art, and music. In recent years, Norwegian architects have made their mark both in Norway and abroad. The natural landscape has been a source of inspiration for many striking buildings. Nature provides good raw materials that are transformed into culinary delights. Norwegians love getting out into the countryside, and many different types of outdoor recreation are very popular. Norway, natural beauty, serenity and abundance. Land of the midnight sun.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. It's a really great pleasure to welcome you. And I have, my name is Alar Kolk. I'm going to be moderator. So I ask crazy and strange questions from our speakers tonight. I hope you will like it. I have one question for you as well. Why actually you came up here? So why are you here? What is the reason? I mean, it's a Friday night. I mean, in France, I'm doing my business in France. So Friday night, usually you don't really work. You already drink some great wine, or you go to cinema or cafeteria. So why are you here? May I ask you this question? Anyone wants to give personal? No? Okay, this is Estonians. Okay, no questions asked. So may I ask your? Can you stand up?
I'm Krista from Estonian Atlantic Treaty Association. I'm here because previously I worked in different business projects. Right now I'm in association, but still this business world is always very interesting for me, and I want to know what's going on there. Thank you.
Give a big applause. It was very brave. Anyone else? No? Okay, I will help you. So please raise your hand who is from businesses, who are doing business. Raise your hand, please, so we can see. Oh, quite many. So who is from government? 1, 2, 3. Okay, not so many government people. NGOs, public, yes, 1. Okay, and now startup companies, completely new ventures. Okay, at least 10 startup companies. Okay, and small and medium-sized companies? Okay, at least 1/3 of it. Okay, great. So now we have information who is actually participating here, mostly business persons and at least 1/3 of from small and medium-sized companies. We can really start our innovation seminar. Today we are going to talk about how to fund your business, but actually even more how to develop your business, how to grow your business. So this is a title of our seminar. And of course this seminar was possible because great support for very distinguished partners, NEC, which is Norwegian Chamber of Commerce, and Norwegian Embassy, of course, Innovation Norway, and of course Enterprise Estonia, who is doing great work promoting innovation in Estonia. So thank you so much for these partners, and we are really happy and we are really grateful because we are going to have great speakers tonight. But before we start, we ask welcoming opening words from distinguished ambassador. So ambassador will talk about what it means to do business between probably Norway and Estonia, and how this is gonna really scale up probably next years. So please, Ambassador Dagfinn Sørlie, the floor is yours. Give us a guidelining opening speech. Thank you.
Thank you, Alar. You hear me? Good. Ladies and gentlemen, glad to be here. It's 2 months since I came to Estonia as the new Norwegian ambassador here. One of my big priorities is to see business and trade relations between Norway and Estonia grow and flourish. That's why we're very happy to support this seminar. And I have to correct you on one point, Alar. It's the Norwegian-Estonian Chamber of Commerce who took the initiative and who is the main organizer of this event. It's important because it's a partnership. It's not a one-way street like trade. I believe that what is true for humans is true for companies. It's also true for organizations and countries, that development, the alternative to development is stagnation. Like the bicycle that needs to move in order to stay up, innovation is the only way forward, and change is the only constant. You will be discussing what this means for your business. For my part, I believe that the same is valid also at the macro level between countries, like the economic relations between Norway and Estonia. These relations have developed quite nicely over the years. In 2013, last year, Estonia exported to Norway goods for approximately 4 billion Norwegian kroner, NOK. The trade the other way around from Norway to Estonia was only 1/4 of that, 1 billion. But on the services side, the trade was about 1 billion also, both in both ways. So if you add that up, you end up with a trade relationship of a value of around 7 billion NOK, which in euro means 850 million or so. And in addition, Norway is number 4 on the list of sources of investment capital to Estonia. But, you know, statistics do not tell the whole story. I just visited a Norwegian joint venture the other day. They export oil drilling equipment from Viljandi to the US, to the Far East. And this is not reflected, of course, in the trade statistics between Norway and Estonia. But it certainly is a result of Norwegian-Estonian commercial relations. So in other words, we have come a long way already. I'm also confident that we will see a steady and organic growth based on these already established economic relations. And I can assure you that from our side, the embassy side, we will do our best to support and strengthen the bonds that already exist. But we will not rest on any laurels. We will constantly be exploring new opportunities, trying to identify new areas for cooperation, and supporting new players that may enter the field. And let me attempt one observation, although I should be careful after having been here only 2 months, but let me take the chance anyway. The difference between Estonians and Norwegians certainly do exist. But what strikes me is the similarities. One example. Estonians are probably not world champions when it comes to small talk. But that's okay. We are neither. I think both Estonians and Norwegians are direct and straightforward in their communication and approach. We prefer to cut the crap and get down to business. And if we agree to something, we stick to the agreement. We are generally predictable and reliable. Let me also underline the fact that Estonia and Norway are part of the same market. Although Norway is not a member of the EU, the agreement on the so-called European Economic Area, the EEA agreement, makes Norway part of the single market, of the internal market. In other words, Norwegian companies enjoy the same rights and obligations as EU companies. And doing business with Norway is as easy as doing business with any other EU member. What I'm trying to say is that Norway and Estonia are close in many ways, not only geographically. I see elements of both compatibility and complementarity that should constitute a good basis for establishing successful companionships. For the embassy, there's no contradiction between, on the one hand, bolstering established relations, and on the other hand, exploring new opportunities. These are two sides of the same coin, or, if you will, two tracks going in the same direction. And the embassy will be working along both tracks. This is also reflected in the program today, where representatives of companies with solid experience from developing business in general and from developing Norwegian-Estonian business specifically stand ready to share their experience and views with you. Before I conclude and hand the microphone back to the moderator, I'm not handing anything, but you understand what I mean. Let me extend a special thanks then again to the Norwegian-Estonian Chamber of Commerce for having taken the initiative for this event, and to Innovation Norway and Anneli Abel for organizing the event. I hope you'll find the program interesting, inspiring, and I wish you all the best in your endeavors. Thank you.
Thank you so much for this introduction, and we are now ready to continue our conference or seminar. So next topic, we just jump into funding, because you know in Europe what concerns new venture development or business development in general, the largest and biggest problem is how to really fund your company. And we are very lucky today because we have a Steiner Consol here. Steiner founded Seed Forum, so you probably had, some of you already had some experience with Seed Forum. So this is global operations. Seed Forum is training entrepreneurs and also organizing investment for your new company. And this is really massive what Seed Forum has done recently, running this kind of workshops, training workshops in New York, in Singapore, also many times in Estonia. So we are really lucky that Steiner is here and giving us really, I hope, great speech how to actually develop your company, how to really fund it. So Steiner, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Alar, and thank you very much for inviting me to the center of the world, at least today in Tallinn. I would very much like to start off with killing the Estonian modesty by asking you all to raise up. Could you all raise up, please? Please raise up. And please turn to the next one to you and scratch this person's shoulder, only the shoulders, and just start off now by doing that, and we'll familiarize ourselves a little bit more. Let's start, please. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. That's more than enough. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. This is a fantastic hall, and it's fantastic because it's almost full of people. The challenge we though have is that we still have some seats in the front. And this typical way of seating yourself is typical for our part of the world. I'm a native Norwegian, so I was taught up by my parents not to stick my head out. And unfortunately, we have a lot of people here in the back, and we have still some free chairs in the beginning. So please, if you would like to be on the back row, moving over here while I'm speaking, you are utmost welcome. So let's together kill this Nordic modesty. because this is about funding and you need to make yourself visible. The two main challenges in the global innovation system is, first of all, access to private equity funding. And the reason is simple, just because it is less than 0.5% of all companies that the first 3 years of existence have enough revenues themselves to reinvest into their own organic growth. So the first obstacle in the global innovation system, in Estonia as well as in Norway, as in all other countries, is access to private equity funding. The other global challenge is to think that one small shop could become 10 shops, could become 100 shops, could become 1,000 shops. So it's only your own limitation of thinking big enough. So think that the big challenges are basically access to private equity funding and for yourself to think big enough. Now, why do you need funding? It's obviously to grow. And we see that in 2014 and beyond, the global competition and the markets, how they are evolving, means that companies need to grow faster than before just to become success. And secondly, also, in 2014 and beyond, the technologies goes much faster in development than every time before. So this is basically putting the challenges as well to not only the public sector, but as well to all types of businesses and particularly as well to startups. Because I understand that there are a couple of startups in the audience, and it might as well be that some of you, not being startups, would like to start a startup, to create something by your own. So if you have an idea, you would need funding. It is also the case that companies that already are in a good growth pace wants to access funding just to grow faster. And that means the definition of innovation, because innovation is simply either to create something new or to improve something existing. And by that means, in my thinking, I'm thinking about companies in three different ways. I think about companies as technology companies, and just by having a protectable intellectual property, by being a technology company, you are a possible growth company. Then we have all non-tech companies with the potential to grow. That's everything from fashion, clothes to whatever. And the rest of the innovation system are lifestyle companies that stays small. I believe that in the Estonian startup system, ecosystem, innovation system, like in most other countries around the world, it is just a small portion of companies that actually grow and grow fast enough in 2014 and beyond. So I'm not sure, but I would expect that less than 5%, maybe much less than 5% of companies which are established in Estonia actually grows fast enough to become successes. To understand the world of funding, you need to understand what types of investors there are around. And first of all, on one hand side, you have the private, wealthy individuals with money to possibly invest in you. And the first typical investor you meet when you start your business is your own network, your friends, family, and no fools, but founders. So it means we upgraded you from fools to founders. And that is very important because you as founders also need to understand that you are investors in the company. So it's not the investor that comes on board and you who are the original team, you need to create a team together with investors to grow the company. Another type of private wealth individual with money, with available cash, with available competence, and with available time to work together with you are actually the so-called definition of a business angel, smart money. But in the end, cash is king, so it's fine if you meet wealthy individuals with less available time and competence, no cash. But on one hand side, it's the wealthy individuals with money. On the other hand side, you have the structured capital. First of all, you have the seed funds, which are early stage investment funds, very often in most countries set up with a public contribution in some various models to the fund. Then you have venture funds. Then we have something called corporate venture, which basically means the situation where a huge industry mastodont invests some small portion of the money of the company into new exciting possible growth companies, like for instance Nokia Venture, Intel Capital, and so forth. Then we have what is called family money. If this was possibly in Moscow or Kiev, we will call it oligarch money. It is a situation where a wealthy individual or family has become so incredibly wealthy that he or a family reinvests into some part of the fortune into new exciting startups. There is a big difference between a private wealthy individual that invests and certainly as well structured capital. That's because a private person invests his or her own money, and a fund basically invests according to the decision of the investment managers. So it has a great portion of different when it comes to motivation. What you need to do is to define exactly what type of investors you need to involve into your business with regards to the development stage of your company. That brings us into the seed gap. I believe that most of you have seen the J-curve or the seed gap or the bloodbath of startups many times before. And it's important that you put yourself basically into the curve and understand where you are. And you may observe two very important things from this way of looking at the seed gap. You may observe, first of all, that we put the seed funds on the right-hand side of when you are getting into business. And the reason is simply that investment funds barely invest in companies which are in product development. So the challenge is to actually get through the stage of introducing your business in the market. The other thing you may as well observe is that venture funds barely invest if companies are not getting very close to being accumulated cash positive. And this is very important. So it means that if a company is in product development, there is absolutely no need basically of talking to venture funds. Except if you think that you have something which is so terribly exciting, disruptive, game-changing, or wow, that even venture capitalists would invest down into product development. We barely see that in the whole seed form world the latest years. There are some exceptions. For instance, last year we had 2 exceptions in, for instance, Internet for Things. But it is sometimes like that you would think that your idea is sometimes a little bit more exciting than investors would think. Investors' motivation is important to understand. I hear sometimes that there are some sophisticated people out there that invest. I meet thousands of investors all over the world the whole year. I haven't met many sophisticated people yet. It's unfortunately, or fortunately, how you look at this, to invest into your company, basically to earn as much money as absolutely possible, as fast as possible. This is really what it's all about. And this is what you need to understand with regards to your motivation to start up something, because I believe it's possibly three motivations that could be for you to start a business. Either it's because you have it in the genes, in your veins, it's exciting, it's fun, it's game-changing, all these things, that is the whole soul of entrepreneurship. Sometimes we hear in our pitch trainings in Seed Forum that you may change the world, you have an agenda to change something. And the third reason we barely hear in our pitch trainings are that startups also really want to earn money. So it's no problems with that. You need to interface your motivation yourself, but you need also to interface your motivation with investors, because if you don't, those are the things that goes wrong. It's absolutely nothing wrong by just being still in product development stage, because most companies we deal with in Seed Forum are still in product development. But you need to team up with investors and understand investors' motivation. This is basically most of the times where things go wrong, that this is not in place. Investors' motivation are certainly also to talk to companies which are at least a certain level of competent, understanding what are so-called value drivers, the arguments why to invest in you, that investors need an exit strategy, that you understand that the nature of the venture capital market is not to invest in you because you will be profitable in the future, but because of the increase of value of your shares. And that is a big difference. That means that investors invest into your company, and sooner or later they so-called sell out in some level of so-called exit strategy. And it's important for you to understand all of this, and for the investors as well to understand you. Now, if you would like to address investors, The mindset of investors are exactly the following. And this is the same for private investors as well for structured capital. First of all, you need to address, and in our organization, Seed Forum, we have a global standard of 7 minutes that you need to address investors. By the way, the reason why we give you 7 minutes to Seed Forum is that statistically, with thousands of pitches in so many countries all over the world all the time, we know that statistically, if we gave you 10 minutes, it becomes regularly 12 minutes. If we gave you 5 minutes, it becomes regularly 3 minutes. If we give you 7 minutes, it becomes regularly 7 minutes. And it's exactly the time you need to address the necessary content for investors to be tempted enough to come and talk to you. It is a big difference by saying things that you want and need yourself to address to other people, for instance, this time the investors, and what other people, investors in this case, needs to hear. That is a big difference. Now, first of all, you need to address what is your business concept. Thereafter, you need to address who is your team, and not only your team, but why will your team succeed. You need to address what's the niche of your market. Not the market, because investors don't want to hear, if you just get one tiny percentage of $1 trillion billion market, we will get rich. Investors want to hear how you will have a controlling stake of a defined niche of your market. Then you need to address your competitive advantages. That is not explaining what is competition or your competitors, but explaining why you are better than your competitors. You need to explain what is unique with regards to intellectual property, with regards to your business. You need to explain your business model. That means how you are earning money. It needs to explain how much money you're asking for, why do you need the money, and finally, how do you think investors will get out of the opposition, the so-called exit strategy. In this way, if you follow this logic, this is exactly the formula to, according to the title of my lecture, pitch to investors in 7 minutes. And this is what we're teaching companies all over the world. But it's something more. Because if you have the structure in place, it's something called value drivers, the arguments why to invest into your company. And simply so, the reason why to invest in you could be several things. And very often we meet companies with lots of arguments why to invest, so-called value drivers, but it is not clear yet in the mindset of the entrepreneur. And I'll just give you some preliminary examples of what could be exciting trigger points, even in those startups who are present here today, when you would get funded. First of all, it might be that your industry growth. Think what happened during stupidexample.com. It was enough only to say that you were an IT company in .com and investors would run for you, right, as a stupid example. It might be that your team is so potentially successful that everybody understands that you will succeed. And particularly if you already have commercial competence in your team, it means that it is a great potential for success. Investors have no problems understanding that teams are often good enough when it comes to the product and technology, but the difficult part is often the commercial competence in the team. Thereafter, you need to address, maybe you have previous entrepreneurial experience, and even better, if you have someone in your team with so-called previous exit experience, you built a company and even sold it off in a trade sale and industrial exit before, it means that you may step forward and say, we've done it before and we can do it again. Then it might be that you have intellectual property of some level, patent pending, trademark protection, whatever, in your company. It might be that you have a scalable business model. You took the cost originally. Now you're just rolling out to other segments or markets, international level, whatever, at a lower cost than the cost you actually took originally in machinery or product development. It might be that you have already a great net profit, high margins of sales, that you already have a good economy. Very few companies have that in the early stage, but sometimes we meet someone actually with a good balance sheet already, even early stage. It might be that your revenues recur. That means that you sell your thing again and again and again to the same customers. It might be that your revenues recur because you have a subscription model, as an example. It might be that you're already in business. Investors are focused on eliminating risk, and eliminating risk as much as absolutely possible. And the moment of introducing your products or market to the market, it means someone who bought your products and services, that someone believed in your products and services so much that they actually bought it commercially. It means that you have a commercial proof of concept, your own business, is possibly the strongest value driver there is. There's nothing wrong of being still in product development, because most companies we deal with in seed forum are. But then you would need, even though you have long time until your market introduction, anyway to frame to investors that you have a short time to market. It might be that you have a first mover advantage. You're a market maker, but it is very difficult in 2014 in the global wave of startups all over the world to say that you actually have a first mover advantage, just because it could be someone somewhere that is doing something which is quite similar to your thing, right? So be careful with first mover advantage, but if you have to address it. If you are in this position that you have a so-called short exit period, it means that the industry standards, and this is very important for you to understand, the industry standards of the venture capital industry is first of all to have the payback of the investment, if it is a venture fund, not longer than 3, maximum 4 years in the future. The reason why is simply how the funds that invest in you are set up. The other way, other industry standard is also to actually return more than, I would say more than between 3 and 5 times, maybe not less than 5 times the amount of money invested into you. If you think that you may return more or have a shorter exit period, the stronger value driver there is. There are lots of others as well. I just want to set your mindset on why investors should invest in you. And most of these value drivers cannot be created, but even someone could as well. Because if you had an opportunity to invite Richard Branson as part of your team, I could assure you that everyone would run for you without thinking about anything else. All right? So anyway, I happen to be what is called a serial entrepreneur. This means that whatever type of business, I'm looking for growth. My experience is creating companies from everything from radio stations to installing of internet equipment in hotel rooms and other things, fashion clothes, whatever. And what is important is to understand the possible growth. Because the risk, if there is no growth potential, you will just stay small as a lifestyle company, and it basically means that no one will invest in you, because investors are always looking for the so-called super profit investment opportunity. That is what this is all about. This means, I believe you all heard about the hockey stick. And it's fine, because companies which are being invested in are in most times, at least in the new, let's say, innovation community, with some exceptions like real estate and other things, obviously. But mainly the new possible growth companies are hockey stick companies. It means that you're showing a tremendous growth very fast. It's all about future and future estimations. But if investors don't think that your revenues will grow sky high within a short period of time, then you're not a super profit investment opportunity, and investors will barely invest in you. That's a challenge. So it lays a lot as well for you in the business model of the company if you want to involve growth. So think carefully, because very often we see that some companies that comes to our pitch training sometimes realize that they could do a subscription model, for instance, and sesame, sesame, they are very soon becoming growth companies. Investment processes are complex. And if you are in the position that you need lots of money tomorrow, if not you're bankrupt, talking to investors is nothing for you, nor is coming to our organization Seed Forum. What you need to understand, it's a long process, which means regularly a fully fledged venture fund investment process. Means that you have the initial contact with investors, you have initial discussions with investors, then you conclude a preliminary agreement, a so-called term sheet. You go into a formal run-through, a due diligence, and in the end, you are finally, if there are no findings in a due diligence, able to conclude the investment deal. This is how the standardized investment process in venture capital looks. And you should just praise yourself if it's much more simplified than this, because obviously if you're talking to your friends and family, your uncle, aunts, kids, whatever, of course it's not like this. It's much more simplified. So of course it could be much simplified with regards to type of investors, both with regards, if they are private, it goes much faster regularly, and maybe no due diligence, whatever things, which makes it complex. And it could also vary with regards to geography. The not biggest and not quickest, but the biggest and quickest deal, as I always give the example of we have in the seed forum history, was a deal of $20 million signed on a tissue in the bar after one exciting seed forum 2 hours after the end of the forum. This was obviously not a good deal, and it was redone in the coming days with lawyers, etc. But it shows that, of course, it could be different. But you have to be as competent when you are looking for funding and to understand the full complex picture of how it actually is in a fully complex process, investment process in venture capital. Then, very shortly, about how you present to investors. Always, when you do a presentation, you need to understand your audience, who are actually in the hall. Now I have an understanding that you are, and it was very good you asked Alar, so we know who you are. You are a combination of startups. You work for some other companies. There are some from the public sector, some good servants, etc. And that's fine. That's absolutely fine. Now, in the situation you're addressing investors' audiences are, generally speaking, all over the world, as well in Estonia, an audience with middle-aged men in dark suit with a tie, generally speaking. That's basically how it is. There are exceptions, younger men and ladies, but mostly the audience looks like this. And how do you excite this type of audience? It's also crushing numbers. It's always the arguments why to invest in you and understanding how, basically, to earn money. And how then to keep the tension of a pitch of, for instance, 5 minutes, 7 minutes, 10 minutes, not more than 15 minutes at least, because that's other methodology. But a short pitch like this means that you need to be very clear with your message and how you frame things. And if you look at the first curve, is regularly the tension curve of untrained lectures. It gives immediately, wow, it's a new person up there. And it drops immediately, not again, and people go down into their emails. Or in the end, oh, you get tension back because, oh, he's going down again, right? This is regularly how it is. With investors, you need to do something different. You need exactly to understand what excites your audience in this situation, the investors, and what excites the audience are nothing but the value drivers. How to invest in you, the arguments why to invest in you, as we just went through. Those are the trigger points for this type of audience. And then you have the other curve. So what we do in our organization, Seed Forum, is to create the highest level of meeting point at the highest possible level between investors and companies. We need to evaluate and reduce the risk as much as absolutely possible between for investors. So it means companies are nominated, they are trained, they are selected, and in the end of the funnel, they are presenting in Seed Forum. Here you see some exciting photos and some Seed Forums around, some more exciting photos as well from other destinations around the world. And we were very happy that 3 weeks ago, it was even our 20th Seed Forum in Tallinn, opened by the Norwegian Minister for European Affairs at the Nordea Bank. It means already that more than 100 Norwegian companies has actually been presented in Estonia through Seed Forum. More than 100 Estonian companies has been presenting both here in Tallinn and overseas. So that is a great opportunity. Back to what Seed Forum is all about. It's about mind changing, to think perhaps, who knows, a little bit bigger than before. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Steinar, maybe some questions as well. You were talking about growth, business growth, that it's so important. So why we have different understanding of growth in California and here in Europe? So in Europe, I mean, it is perfectly normal to grow like 10-15%. In California, if you meet investors and you don't explain you are going to grow, I don't know, 9 times, say immediately kind of lose interest of yours. So what is a problem of Europe? We don't have growth ambition compared to our colleagues in the US.
Excuse me. First of all, I think this, of course, with regards to definition of growth, depends certainly on the industry. I'm basically addressing young, aspiring startups in, for instance, information technology. It is certainly different in real estate, biotechnology, life science, etc. I am talking like this because I am in Estonia. And Estonia is known exactly a lot for new aspiring IT internet concepts, right? But there are certainly exceptions. But I don't agree when you say that we have a general understanding in Europe that we have a more focus on so-called gradual growth than high growth. And the reason is simply because if you come to any seed forum as well here in Tallinn, those investors in the room will think high growth. They don't think gradual growth. So it's the same all over. This is how the nature is of the venture capital industry.
So what is a normal high growth? Give me numbers.
As I said already, if you could show to tell investors or get investors, so I would say, understanding that you will at least more than 5 times folding the money in less than 3 years. That's possibly a definition of growth.
So it means you have to grow 10 times, basically.
That would be even better. You would be more exciting for investors the more you would grow and the faster it goes, yes.
So let's see what's actual situation. So please raise your hands, startups. There was 10 startups. So let's see, what is the situation? How much you're going to grow next year, please? Would you please stand up?
Hello, thank you. My name is Indrek. I'm representing a company Technolabor, and we have several startup ideas and certain startups also. With Doorbell startup, which is a GSM-based technology device, we estimate in the end of 5 years, 100 times, but in the end of this year, 10 times.
So this year you're going to grow 10 times, yes?
Yes, because we didn't sell anything.
Okay. This was a really good answer. Okay, thank you so much.
Well, then you're a potential candidate for Seed Forum. Thank you.
So let's take another startup. Where is raise your hands, please, startups. Oh, yes, please. So let's see what's going on, how much you want to grow, actually.
Hello, my name is Magnus. I represent Bow Technologies, and we have developed technology to produce web-based software from basically Lego blocks. And since we are such a small company, we plan to grow at least 10 times. But it's just because we are so small. So at the moment, 10 times seems like a piece of cake, but we'll see. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So we still have a growth ambition in Europe as well, it seems. But I have another question for you. So how to actually grow? So Estonian companies, and I learned even Norwegian companies, first kind of guess is, okay, I will start first sale in Norway or in Estonia, in my home market. But if you take Estonia, make no mistake, there is no market in Estonia. Anyone believes there is market in Estonia? You believe, yes. Okay, a couple of people actually believe that there is a market in Estonia. But actually there is no market. Market is maybe in the United States, maybe in India, maybe in China, maybe in Germany, in Europe-wise, or France as well, but not in Estonia. But even in Norway you have only 5 million people. So how to actually grow? Should I start in home? Or should I hit really big market right away?
You see, this comes together with the truth, how it used to be also with regards to funding. Because in the old days, some years ago, maybe 5 years ago still, maybe 3 years ago still, depending on where we are in this world, people said you had to have funding by some local person, mostly a local guy, in your own community, let's say in Narva, because before you could go to Tallinn. And if you were still alive after a year, you could go to Tallinn to seek funding. And if you were still alive after Tallinn, after a year, you could probably go all the way to Stockholm. And if you were still alive after a year, you could even think about the US. This is how the world used to be in the old days. What now provides is the opportunity, particularly for, let's say, Estonian companies. And frankly speaking, I've been in this country with Seed Forum since 2005. It's been a tremendous journey. I think also we can say of mindset changing in Estonia with regards to understanding that many of you, not all, but many of you need to jump. I'll give you one other example, because the most born global country in the world is Iceland. It has 350,000 inhabitants, you have about 1 million, right? So it's even, excuse me, a more difficult situation. No Icelandic startups has a home market. Most of them have to jump. And they even jump without a security net, as many also do here in Estonia. And this is very good, because I think that next time we will be in this hall, there will not be any vacant seat on the second row, because the last row has moved over here. And this is what it's all about.
Okay. Thank you so much. Give a big applause to Steiner. Thank you. So we have to continue because we have many good speakers more. Our next speaker is Joachim Hellenius. Joachim is a founder and executive chairman of Trigon Capital. Joachim needs no further introduction because I think everybody knows Joachim as a distinctive investor. But Joachim has quite, as I learned today, quite, I would say, expensive hobbies. And one expensive hobby is to build tunnel between Helsinki and Tallinn. So let's have a more about this crazy project. So Joachim, please, floor is yours.
Great. Well, thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here. I have an Estonian wife and a Norwegian grandmother, or at least I had one. So I feel very much in the right place. This is a seminar on innovation, but it's also held here in Estonia. And what I wanted to do was give some innovative, hopefully, thoughts on what it will take. I mean, if we ever want to have Estonia become an innovation hub, what does this require? Where are Estonia's weaknesses? Where are Estonia's strengths? How can we overcome the weaknesses and prop up the strengths to create something very special here? I will take a look at the weaknesses, I'll take a look at the strengths, I'll take a look at what can be done to overcome the weaknesses, and then I'll show my solution, explain why I believe in it, why I think that it might sound crazy, but it's anything other than crazy. It is the future, although I still have a lot of work to do to convince the politicians of Estonia of this. Let's start with weaknesses. What is the problem with Estonia? Why is it that Estonia is not referred to in the same way as Silicon Valley or even the so-called European IT clusters? London, Stockholm, Helsinki, Tel Aviv. Nobody ever lists Tallinn as part of that. Why? Why? Well, it's very, very, very small. So that's a problem. It's a problem it's very hard to deal with. I mean, you can't suddenly become large overnight, but it is a problem. Other problem. Estonia, I like to say, is a city-state. Tallinn is 2/3 of GDP and something like half of the population. But even so, Tallinn is extremely small. The Tallinn sort of metropolitan region is maybe 600,000 people or thereabouts. It's not large enough to compete with London or even Stockholm, Helsinki, Tel Aviv in terms of, say, becoming an IT cluster. It's simply too small. It doesn't have what it takes to create clusters, at least any significant clusters. Of course, there are always niche opportunities, but they're very niche. More weaknesses. We just heard about, what to do in order to attract investments, attract capital. Problem in Estonia is that there is very little capital. There is very little financial capital, but for that, but unfortunately, there's also very little, relatively speaking now, human capital. We all know that the history of Estonia, unfortunately, did not allow Estonia to accumulate the sort of physical and, for that matter, maybe know-how that Western countries were able to do, up until the 90s. So Estonia has had to do a lot of catch-up from the beginning of the 90s when the system collapsed, the old system collapsed, which Western European countries haven't had to do because they had all these decades to accumulate capital. I'm not going to, cover every point in this that you will see on these slides, so please forgive me, and you should maybe look at these bullet points as I speak. But I'll speak to the main points. We have not only a lack of financial capital. Ultimately, how many family offices are there in Estonia? How many seed capitalists are there in Estonia? How many private equity firms are there? How many venture capital firms? If you say one or two to most of those questions, you're probably close to reality. You go to these big clusters in Europe, in America, and you're talking about a choice of hundreds, if not thousands, of potential investors. This is a problem. On the entrepreneurial side, we like to think that Estonia has a lot of especially IT entrepreneurs. And of course, in many ways it does. But on a relative basis, again, when comparing Estonia to even Helsinki across the Gulf of Finland, we're talking about a dramatic difference in numbers. It is unfortunate that such a large part of, say, the 40-plus generation in Estonia, the individuals who, or maybe 45-plus, whatever, who were unfortunate in having to spend at least a reasonable part of their early lives in the former Soviet Union, have found it much harder than Western equivalents, age equivalents, to become entrepreneurs. It hasn't been as easy. They haven't had the same background in terms of schools, universities, attitudes. And I think it's amazing what nevertheless has been achieved here in Estonia. But what we need is much, much, much more entrepreneurship. And you cannot tap somebody on the shoulder and say, become an entrepreneur. It has to come from the inside. So we are talking about problems, and because Estonia is so small, these problems are not being resolved, for example, through immigration. If you're an entrepreneur somewhere in Europe or somewhere in the world, you probably will not decide, well, I'm going to move to Estonia and start developing a business. Again, there are exceptions to this rule, some of them sitting in this room, but it's very few and far between. So, what can we do to change this? What can we do to attract more entrepreneurs, to attract more qualified specialists? Because without qualified specialists, an entrepreneur can't really build a business. How do we get the immigration going? How do we slow down the emigration? Lots of problems, lots of weaknesses. Weakness, no access. We all know that you can't drive a car to Helsinki. You can't take a train to Helsinki or Stockholm. In fact, whichever way you look at it, Estonia really is on the periphery. The air connections are weak. The rail and car connections are extremely weak. So whereas if you are in the center of Europe or somewhere, it's very easy to get to and from wherever. Here, it's a real effort to get to Tallinn or from Tallinn to somewhere else. Obvious weakness. We don't want to dwell too much on weaknesses, so what about the strengths? Because Estonia does have a lot of strengths. I think one of the greatest achievements of the independent Estonia has been the business environment that's been created here. The governments, since Estonia became independent again, have done an excellent job in creating an environment where the tax system and the labor markets, the labor legislation, the general legislation, have been geared towards promoting business. They've realized that without a strong business community, Estonia is never going to catch up with Western living standards. The results can be seen. So if Estonia, in terms of population, in terms of the size of the economy, is in the hundreds in terms of the comparative global comparisons, 100 this, 100 that. In terms of business environment, Estonia is the leader in the formerly socialist Central and European countries, and it's rapidly catching up with Western countries that are generally reckoned to be good places to do business in. So very good stuff happening here. The labor quality is also something that I never stop wondering about. It's very good. I mean, the incidence of English speakers in Estonia is unbelievable. In fact, I saw a study not too long ago where the only sort of non-Scandinavian country, and I think Holland is also up there, but away from Holland and Scandinavia, which are generally reckoned to be the best English speakers in the world that are not, English native speakers, Estonia was right up there, in a sort of similar category, way ahead of Germany and France and Belgium and other Western European countries. So the language of business, international business, the language of the computer language, basically the only truly global language without which you're never going to get very far in life, is a language that is extremely well spoken here in Estonia, which of course is a fantastic strength and a fantastic base on which to build a good future. Education also works. I mean, Estonia has some of the best schools in the world. In fact, it's catching up. In the last PISA study is a study that's done every 3 years, where they compare the results of school children in various age groups around the world. Estonia came, I think it was second in Europe after Finland, and way up, in the top 10 in the world. So better than Sweden, better even, amazingly, than Norway, better than Germany, better than England, better than all these other Western European countries. So a lot of good stuff is happening. For a small, in fact, almost minimal country like Estonia, to have 2 universities in the top 100 in the world, I think there are 30,000 universities in the world, is also amazing. The only 2 universities from the entire Baltics in the top 500 rankings. So, a lot of good stuff happening. Work attitude, excellent. The corruption is low. In fact, it's Western European. Scandinavian mentality. People work hard and they really focus on what they do and do it well. Location, which of course is a weakness, can also be seen as a strength, because Estonia is right next door to the wealthy Scandinavian countries. Now, let's hope at least Finland and Sweden stay wealthy. Norway has its oil, so it definitely will stay wealthy, but Scandinavia has its own challenges. But nevertheless, I mean, they're still some of the wealthiest economies in the world, and Estonia is right next door. And how can that be used? So solutions that people talk about. Well, what can be done about getting more financial capital in? Well, one can promote Estonia. One can try to sell Estonia. There are, it's an attractive tax environment and so forth. Well, this is being done. EIS is doing a good job, I think, but nothing dramatic will happen anytime soon, if ever. Things will successes will be had, but there's not going to be any dramatic jump in foreign direct investment or anything else. And that's because Estonia has these massive weaknesses. It's so small, it's so difficult to get to, it's relatively poor. Why should anybody really get involved in the Estonian market, invest in the Estonian market, if there isn't any sort of paradigm shift going on? So as things stand now, unlikely to see any dramatic improvement. Human capital. Of course, one can, and there's a lot of work being done to further build on the successful educational system, to overcome some of the weaknesses in tertiary education in the university sector and so forth. And no doubt over the longer term, we'll start seeing some results. Transport links, well, you know, there's a lot of talk about Rail Baltica. I don't know how much, you know, this will dramatically change things if you can hop on a train and, you know, be in Berlin a day and a half, 2 days later. I mean, is that really going to make a huge difference? More direct flight, yeah, you know, I have a bit of experience of that. It's not so easy. So it's unlikely that there's going to be any dramatic, quick improvements that would change things very much. Large urban area, well, you know, I mean, Tallinn will do well to stay about the same size as it is now because the Estonian population overall is declining. So we're not talking here about a city that's going to be growing very fast. We're talking about a city where the population at best will stay stable, but of course age, which is not really good for dynamism. Openness to immigration. Well, even if the government, and there is a move in government circles towards becoming more welcoming towards immigration, but even if this is the case, where are the immigrants going to come from? Why would lots and lots of people want to move to Estonia? You know, unless we open up, you know, immigration to asylum seekers from Somalia or whatever, or you know, politically difficult. We took in huge amounts of you know, Russians or whatever from I don't know, from some poor parts of Russia. You know, where do you find people who want to come and live in Estonia? It's not going to be the highly educated people who can drive an innovation economy. Those are not going to be the people who would move to Estonia, even if Estonia was more welcoming. So, problem. So, lots and lots of weaknesses, some strengths, difficulties in resolving the problem, in coming up with the solutions that would overcome the weaknesses and kickstart the Estonian economy so that it could catch up with Western living standards faster. The solution that I promote is a fairly dramatic one. Whenever I talk about it, people always refer to the crazy idea, and it is a little bit crazy, but it's not unrealistic. If a tunnel was to be built, basically we could get from the center of Tallinn to the center of Helsinki in about 30 minutes. So you jump on a train in the center of Tallinn somewhere, and 30 minutes later you're in the center of Helsinki. I mean, it's the same as if you hop in a car and you start driving towards Viimsi. It probably takes about 30 minutes. This would change, and I'll explain how, but this would dramatically change the future outlook for the Estonian economy. I don't know who wrote this. This would not be the longest tunnel in the world, but anyway, it would be a long tunnel. At the moment, a big, you know, the link with Finland is a huge part of the Estonian economy. But it's not a particularly, and it's important, and you know, it has many facets, but it is not a dynamic link yet. What we need to move towards is what people talk about, but is not the case, which is a twin city concept. You know, how do we get Tallinn especially attached to the dynamism of Helsinki? There's a good example of how this has been done, which is the bridge tunnel between Malmö and Copenhagen. Now, in the 1980s, Malmö was a city in decline. It was considered the economic problem case of Sweden. You can see here how the population was shrinking. Around the 1980s, the political decision was taken to build a bridge tunnel between Malmö and Copenhagen. Now, over time, this changed everything. I mean, from a population of whatever it was in the 80s, 230,000, it's now grown to over 300,000, whatever that is, 30% or something. I mean, if this can happen between Copenhagen and Malmö, why can't it happen between Helsinki and Tallinn? Malmö today is considered one of the fastest growing economic areas in Sweden, attracting people not only from other parts of Sweden, not only from Copenhagen, but from all over the world. Copenhagen is part of this Ørestad region of Copenhagen-Malmö, and the Copenhagen-Malmö urban region, metropolitan area, is considered one of the most dynamic in Europe. This was not the case before the bridge. Now, many of you will sit there and you'll say, well, why do we need that? We have Tallink. We could, there are lots and lots of ferries crossing over from Tallinn to Helsinki all the time. You can get to Helsinki if you want to go to Helsinki. That's not a problem. Well, believe me, because I was there in the 70s and the 80s, there were far more ferries and, crossing between Copenhagen and Malmö. I mean, the sea was full of ferries going back and forth. But this did not create any economic dynamism, as you can see from the statistics. It's only when the bridge came about that the two cities really grew into a twin city. Today, Malmö, as well as Copenhagen, have benefited for, what is it now? Getting on for 20 years from the connection. They have grown into a genuine twin city, and they have gone from from being an economic region with problems to being one of the most dynamic economic regions in Europe. Why can't we do the same? What is so different about Tallinn-Helsinki as compared to Malmö-Copenhagen? I have asked lots of people. Nobody's been able to give an answer. Everybody says, yeah, that's pretty convincing, yeah. But why have we still not become more aggressive in pursuing the opportunities that a tunnel between Helsinki and Tallinn could provide us with? I don't know. But I think, this is where the politicians are making a huge mistake. They don't seem to have the vision. They don't seem to see the idea, because at the very least, to put in place a proper study will make sense. And I'm absolutely sure it will come sooner rather than later. What could happen if we had a tunnel? Well, first and foremost, there would be far more labor pool integration. You could, if you need specialists for some very, very demanding job in Tallinn, you can hire somebody who lives in Helsinki. They just commute to work. Of course, vice versa as well. Very importantly, business integration. If you are a Finnish IT entrepreneur, and Helsinki is one of the 4 or 5, European IT hubs, Tallinn is a long way from being able to compete with Helsinki in that, although everybody in Estonia talks about IT. Well, if you're a Finnish IT entrepreneur, you've got a great idea, you think it's going to grow like crazy, you're going to have the hockey stick effect, you're going to grow at, 10 times a year, or whatever these numbers were that were being bandied around. Well, do you really want to pay Finnish taxes? If you do, you're crazy. With a tunnel, you could set up your business, your IT project in Tallinn. You could attract people who work in Tallinn. They could be Estonians, or you could attract people from Helsinki, specialists from Helsinki. I mean, it's not a bad place to work. You pay far lower taxes, and with a tunnel, you could be in Helsinki for dinner every night if you wanted to, seeing your girlfriend or your boyfriend or whatever it may be, whilst your wife is in the other place. The opportunities there would be dramatic, and the biggest gainer would be Tallinn, because Tallinn has lower costs, lower taxes, actually a less bureaucratic environment than Finland. So a lot of the IT dynamism that you can see in Helsinki could spill over into Tallinn. This would massively benefit Tallinn and Estonia, but it would actually benefit Finland as well, because it would just make the whole place much more dynamic. Finland and Helsinki would benefit as the bigger partner. Tallinn would benefit dramatically. We could see the development of another European, dynamic cluster, just like Malmö and Copenhagen have achieved, the same. Why not? The problems that I outlined would be significantly resolved. Maybe not fully, but they would, to a significant extent, the problems would become much less worrisome. Size. Estonia is very small, Tallinn is very small, internationally speaking, but if Tallinn becomes part of a twin city, Helsinki metropolitan region is what, 1.5 million, Tallinn is maybe 500,000, we'd be talking about 2 million plus. That's a city of, international scale. Suddenly, size is no longer such a big problem to attract specialists from, from America, from China, from other parts of Europe to come and work here in Tallinn. When you say that Tallinn is not a small city of 500,000 people in a country of 1.3 million people, you say Tallinn is part of a twin city, one of the most dynamic regions in Europe, a twin city of over 2 million people. It's going to be a lot easier to get people from all over the world to come and work here. The urban environment will look totally different. Capital. Again, not only will it become much easier to access Finnish capital, but Estonia will suddenly be on the map when it comes to international capital, because Helsinki is, I'm focusing on IT here because this is innovation, but the same applies to many other business sectors. Helsinki is a place that, can attract capital from venture capitalists all over the world. IT venture capitalists from Silicon Valley, from all over the world, visit Helsinki regularly to see what's going on in the IT scene there, and they invest in the Finnish IT companies. It happens here, but very, very, very rarely by comparison. Being part of the same city region, Estonian IT startups, IT companies would find it much easier to access international capital. No access? Hey, Helsinki is one of the best connected airports in Europe. It's the gateway to Asia. With a tunnel, you could be at that airport in half an hour. If I leave central London to go to Heathrow, it takes me a hell of a lot longer than that. So suddenly, Tallinn could have access to one of the best connected airports and basically be part of a city served by one of the best connected airports in Europe. So again, we will have overcome one of our biggest problems. There we are. I don't know what this all will cost. The specialists are talking about 3 to 4 billion euros. I don't think that's an insurmountable amount. I mean, it's about the same size as the budget for the Rail Baltica, which will be less meaningful for the Estonian economy, that's for sure. It's actually, the project has much more support amongst Finnish politicians than amongst Estonian politicians. This needs to change. So let's see. One last point I'll make, which is not related to the twin city, but is related to the tunnel, and somehow related to Norway, is that if the tunnel were to be built, and Rail Baltica were to be built, and we allow ourselves a little bit of sort of science fiction-like thinking, the Arctic ice is melting. Every year, more and more ships are carrying goods from China and Asia, from Japan, Korea, wherever, through the Arctic Sea down to Europe, usually to Rotterdam. If we put as this continues, if we were to put a port in the very north of Norway, connected into the Finnish railroads, if we had a tunnel, you could actually, Norway, Finland, Estonia, the Baltics, could become part of a huge transit corridor because it would be the shortest way for Asian goods to reach Central Eastern Europe. You know, again, there's a lot to think about here. My aim today has simply been to put the idea to all of you that, that this is something that is needed. It's the one big idea, one big vision that could dramatically change the future prospects of Estonia. And for some odd reason, Estonian politicians haven't realized this yet, but they will. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, but I still want to ask one question. So probably it takes 20 years and probably 20 billion to build a Hellenius tunnel, but how to do business today, especially based on statistics? I mean, what I read out, take smart people from Estonia and incorporate your business in London, or how to do business today?
Well, I think there is a lot of business being done today, in spite of my somewhat discouraging remarks about weaknesses. I think you know, Estonia simply needs more entrepreneurs, and whatever can be done to promote entrepreneurial thinking and entrepreneurial risk-taking in Estonia is important, and you know, that's what we have to work with. Who knows how long this tunnel thing will take, and who knows how much it will cost at the end of the day. The important thing, though, is that if people start to talk about it, if maybe even a decision is made to seriously study it at governmental level, make it into a project, try to sell the EU on making it into an EU sort of a regional connections project, this alone, today, not 20 years from now, will start to change attitudes towards Estonia. So, you know, psychologically, starting to plan the tunnel alone will make a big difference, even before the whole tunnel has been built someday, maybe in the future.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So we will continue with Norwegian perspective, and we're going to talk about how to transfer technology and collaboration, and even two ways. We have a great speaker here, Christian Testmann. Christian has been what we were explained, serial entrepreneur. Christian has been founded many companies, successful companies, and will give us a 30-minute speech how to develop your companies really in a successful way. So Christian, please, floor is yours.
You guys have been sitting for an hour. Please rise. You don't have to do anything, just stretch your legs for a couple of seconds while we switch machines, basically. But please don't leave before my speech. I'll do. Very good. And then you have the laser. Oh, there it is. Great. I might need it. So we have. It has to configure automatic. Automatic. Okay, we'll see what happens. Nope. There is something going on. We'll just leave that. Okay. Max, thank you. Yeah, I'm good. Okay. Please take your time. I mean, I know what it's like to sit there. So I'm, you all good? Got some water? Fine? Okay. So I'm Christian Testmann. I run a company called ICD. ICD is actually an industry group in Norway, and I'll explain you how we built that group of companies. And I will also tell you a little bit about how to set up startups, also the ones that we have built here in Estonia. Now, first time ever I was in Estonia was October 3 years ago. And the reason I was here because this gentleman, Steinar, he had invited me for a pitch here in Estonia. So capital actually exists in Estonia, according to Stenai. And I was introduced to Tallinn for the first time. Since then, I have set up or registered 5 companies, I think, in Estonia alone. But most of my time I spend in Norway on the ICD group. And today I'm going to show you a little bit about what makes us Norwegian founders tick, what makes us like so much to do business, and to do so I've stolen with pride this one to explain it.
It takes courage to take a step into the unknown, to embrace uncertainty, seek new resources in the world's most inaccessible places. To go deeper than anyone could have imagined. Cooperation. To reach new goals with industry partners. To engage with communities. Wherever we operate. It takes care and balance to meet the accelerating demand for energy. It takes commitment and trust. To take what we've learned and build new solutions. Develop alternative sources of energy. It takes skill and control to apply innovative technologies to reach new markets worldwide. This is what it takes to be a pioneer. This is who we are. Statoil, crossing energy frontiers.
So clearly, Norway has found its great natural resources over the past 30 years. and it has made the Norwegian nation quite wealthy. We would not have become such a wealthy nation if it wasn't for very hard and dedicated work from the entire country. Some people would perhaps say that we were lucky to find all that oil and gas, but basically, and we were. But it has been a tremendous focus in our country on supplying most of the technology to that industry ourselves. So today, we are looking at subsea production, not surface production like they did in the old days when they were building rigs like this in the 70s and 80s. Subsea production and great pipelines of natural gas and also oil. And this is what makes the corporate Norway tick. Now you can ask yourself, what makes small and medium-sized businesses tick? Of course, we have a great focus in this, and I'm one of the representatives of this industry, if you want. Now, I run a little group of companies in Ålesund on the west coast of Norway called ICD, and we started out as a group in 2010 with the basis of a software control platform design company. Now you can ask yourself, what's a software company doing up on the west coast? But yeah, you need software even when you are building heavy-duty ships and landing gear and cranes and winches and trawlers and all that too. So basically we are a supplier of software to the marine industry. We regrouped in 2011 and we started out with 6 employees, 4.6 million in turnover, and today we have 110 employees and 330 million in turnover, growth of 3,300% in ICD software, which is the heart of our operation. How do we do that? Well, we dedicated our software towards making other companies' hardware better. So we took initiative to form joint ventures, one of them being Seonix, which is the offshore supply arm we have together with Vard, the largest shipbuilder of offshore ships in the world. So Seonix focuses on all the heavy-duty stuff that I'm going to show you later. Then we decided we wanted to set up another joint venture with Marine Aluminum. They are a world leader in making helicopter landing decks and aluminum gangways so that you can go from one point to the other. And I'm going to show you what we did with those guys. We set up here in Estonia a joint venture with a company called LEI Innovation. They have been developing lasers since 1991 officially here in Estonia, and before that even in the Soviet Union. So they know a thing or two about laser technology. And we decided we wanted to set up something using those lasers to detect oil spill in iced waters. And that's the company Ocean Visuals. Lastly, we also acquired a company that's called Faster Imaging last year. They make engines for maps, online and offline maps. And the reason we did that was because we needed them. Now, I come from a very remote place west of Norway, or at least west in Norway. And our references are probably things you've never heard about, but maybe you've heard about Rolls-Royce. But we are working with a Marine, and they are one of our largest customers. So this doesn't make much sense to you, but what I'm trying to illustrate here is that in order to do something when you are a small player, a niche player, you have to dedicate yourself towards becoming the best in that area. And we are regarded the best at delivering control design platforms for controlling marine vessels. For instance, I'm going to give you a few examples of what ICD software does. We deliver control solutions to the biggest vessels out there who are doing the offshore handling, who are towing the drill rigs, who are handling the anchors of the drilling rigs out in the sea. We deliver equipment for safe passage to the oil and gas industry. Rosneft was out in the Kara Sea now in summer. They used our heat-compensated gangway on one of the vessels, hired from Norwegian vessel owners. Just to give you an example. We are focusing on delivering equipment for subsea handling. We are the largest producer of launch and recovery systems for ROVs through Seonix. And one of the newer areas we are looking at is offshore wind. So what on earth does this startup company we have do? Well, we make control systems. What do you use control systems for? Well, guess what? You need to know when alarms go on and off in boats. It's very important. It's crucial for health and safety. Somebody has to make the system that makes the propellers go and how they should go. Somebody has to make the control of the units that make the cranes move. And we do all of these things. We enable it through the common control platform. Here's another example. What do you use our control system for here? So it looks like this when it's presented to the operator, but actually what it does is it handles this crane right there. Here's another example. I just mentioned it, launch and recovery. Launch and recovery means basically throwing something over the side and making sure it doesn't disappear, come safely back. And in this case, it's the ROVs. You've seen these little robots that swims around with an umbilical cord, you know, way down there, and it has gripping arms. Well, someone has to get that safely into the sea and up again, even in rough weather. So on the side of these ships, there's a hole right there, and out it comes. We build that. Here you have another example of a boat that was launched 2 weeks ago for Orange, or France Telecom, as you know them. And this is a dredger. What you see here is a cable. At the end of this is a huge digging claw right there. You see it. And they dredge the sea bottom. And that's where they put the fiber cables so that you get telephony between, you know, Africa and America, between Europe and the United States, etc. We make the control systems for that. Here's another example. See this? This is one of the latest floating drill ships in the world. See that thing? Very thin, isn't it? It's a dual design, and the reason this is so hot is because Fincantieri Offshore decided that they would take what most people see as these weird, broad, big towers and place it in the bottom for more stability. Very cool, isn't it? Now, we deliver winch motors, so winch control, motor control, and control systems for this kind of a rig setup. Lastly, I'm going to show you an example of intervention towers. This is an intervention towers. It is usually handled over a hatch like this that goes to the side. You see there's like a railroad track down there, and that means there is a hole in the boat. It's called the moon pool, and you can take things up and down in the hole in the boat. Okay? So now I've shown you a little bit about what we do as a company. Oh, here's another one. This must be the last one, don't you think? See that thing back there? That's the gangway that took its trip up to the Kara-Sea. What's so special about that gangway? Well, it's heave compensated. That means that when the boat is rocking like this, the gangway is completely still. And it's the only safe way when you are up away from everywhere. When it's so far, you can't even fly a helicopter safely to Murmansk to get, you know, the crew safely from ship to platform and back. Okay? Good. So that's what we do. And it's a software company, all right. We have about 60 very dedicated, highly skilled professional programmers in Norway with various master degrees. About 55 of them are masters, and then a couple of doctors and normal engineers. What do we need? We need academic excellence, because that's what we hire. We need really, really good programmers. And really, really good programmers you can find everywhere. But most people have advised me to take a look to China. So I traveled with the Minister of Norway's entourage to China. I tried to find good programmers in China. I found good programmers, but they didn't understand what I was talking about. You know, that was a big issue. Then I went with the Minister of Trade to India twice. I went in his entourage, and I was looking for programmers and programming companies who could work with us. We found them, but it turned out that if we gave them assignments for test, they would just stop when they came at some problem or issue, and they wouldn't address us. Hence, everything stopped, and we couldn't have that. And also the cultural difference was quite a barrier. It's very far away, and we are very different. Let's face it. So I gave the assignment to Innovation Norway to help me to find something closer to home. And we actually had the first meeting with Innovation then when I was with you, was with also this gentleman from Innovation Norway. And that was 3 years ago. And it was a very good match. Why? I'll show you why. Okay? Because this is the real reason that we decided to go to Estonia.
Estonia's use of IT in the public and governance sector has clearly been the factor in pushing us to the forefront of countries in modernization. We have, thanks to the various solutions we have, be it e-taxation, e-health, e-voting, made Estonia one of the most transparent and cleanest governments in the world, precisely thanks to the fact that you can't bribe a computer, that people trust the system, and we have a far more efficient way of doing things.
All success, I believe, includes fair amount of chance and luck. For Skype, we were in a position where it was sort of logical to be born here. We had a good talent pool, we had a lack of legacy in IT industry, and we had this incredible wish to change the world.
Smartphones and NetBank is the basic solutions for our everyday banking. E-solution is now so-called the new normal in the market, so that if you are not in the e-channels, this really means that you are not existing.
The quickest growing channel these days is mobile bank, because the last year it have grown 50 times compared to the previous years.
The ID card infrastructure lets people to relate themselves to the data, so they are not so dependent anymore on the big data providers, either government or big corporations. The X-Road in this context is very important, because it enables us to distribute the databases and still operate it as one big virtual database.
The benefits are clear, looking at how high the compliance rate in taxation is in Estonia, which is way beyond that which is normally expected, and it comes from 95% of people filling their taxes in an easy, simple way, taking 5 minutes, all online.
Okay, so you might be small, Estonia, but you have certainly impressed us. I'm going to talk about how we build companies a little later, but first, there are very few countries in the world who are more advanced than Estonia when it comes to public services, electronic public services. You should be proud. You know, the X-Road and what you have is unique. We're not even close to getting that level of ICT standard in Norway yet. And we've had many years to try to build it, trust me. So you might not be so many, but you have resources in Estonia with a very high level of quality, and those were the qualities we were looking for when we were establishing. I have to admit that after we established in Estonia, we also have set up operations in Poland. That's more like focusing on electrical engineering and more like manufacturing, whereas here we are doing ICT programming. And I asked the recruiter to find me the best ones, even if I had to steal them from Skype or wherever I could find them. And I did get a really, really good team, which is important when you are starting up anything. So, startups in general. So what do we do when we are setting up these verticals? I mentioned that I identified 2 years ago, a company called LDI Innovation. Dr. Sergei Babichenko, he's in this room. Where are you, Sergei? Oh, there you are. He is one of the world's leading experts in laser technology, and he's been living in your midst since the late 80s, I would say. And he has been successfully building lasers for countries like United States, Canada, Saudi Arabia, England, Sweden, Norway, France. His technology was regarded as one of the best to be used after the Gulf cleanup, even though he didn't get a commercial contract because only United States companies were approved as vendors when the BP funding was split by Americans. So what are we looking for when we are setting up a new company? Well, first of all, we look for a partner who has something unique. And secondly, something that we can complement with our technology to create something even better. That is the whole thing. That's why we're doing the heave-compensated gangways in Uptime. That's why we're doing the launch and recovery systems in Sionix, et cetera, et cetera. So we set up a company that's named Ocean Visuals, okay? And Ocean Visuals is basically a company that uses laser technology from Estonia for screening the environmental conditions in iced waters where oil occurs. That is the most important thing we did, an early oil spill detection system. Because the worst thing that can happen to the country of Norway is that we get an oil spill in the high north, which is super vulnerable. Do you guys remember Exxon Valdez accident? When Exxon supertanker crashed in the sound of Valdez in Alaska. Yeah? That was the world's biggest oil spill ever, most catastrophic, until what happened to BP in the Gulf. Norway cannot take a chance, nor the risk to something that happened, and hence the government of Norway has been focusing on high north and Barents 2020 issues for the last 5 to 6 years. What we offer in Ocean Visuals is basically a real-time laser that monitors whatever happens underneath a rig or on a vessel in patrol, and we take that data, we process it against a library we have built of oil types, real oil types. And then we do something called pattern matching in real time, so that we don't only find the oil, we know exactly how much it is in parts of millions, and we know what type of oil it is. And all that information is then available to the network operating centers. Okay? Very, very smart. And the country of Norway thinks that's really, really smart. Now, we've only built a couple of lasers now, and we've been testing it with the government of Norway, and also soon with some oil companies. What we are thinking of is like Steinar said, where we want to think big. So what we are doing in parallel, we are building airborne versions of it, like you can see here in helicopters and drones and aerostats. And right now I'm also focusing on putting something on the bottom of the sea, okay? Okay. So how did we go about funding this one? Because all companies need funding in a startup, whether you are a going company or you are starting from scratch with nothing. We looked for funding in the public sector for this one, and we found it, and we received 4 million from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Norway for their Barents 2020. And then we also applied here in Estonia with our local company for the Green Industry Innovation, which is handled by EAS, something called Norway Grants. And that project, we were also granted money. Not all of that money, half of that money, I have to explain, because the other half has to come from us. Okay? So this is one way of getting funding. You can actually apply on public funding available to anybody in any country, you know. And Steinar didn't mention that, so I thought I'd do so. Lastly, this is feedback I got from one of our employees. He's the project manager from the ICD Estonia company. He has been looking into building Ocean Visuals for the past years. Martin, are you here? Oh, there you are, good. Now Martin, he gave me the following feedback when I asked, so what do you guys think about this Norwegian mentality and attitude? And this is the answer we got and that you gave from the team. And these are the reasons they gave me for working with a Norwegian company, okay? Because at the end of the time, if you don't get the right mix of culture and the feedback from both sides, you know, you can have the best business idea in the world, but it won't fly, I guarantee you. So I thank you for the nice feedback. Next time I'll probably have to ask you what is the negative side of working with Norwegian companies. But no, rest assured, we were very proud of this. And to us, it's been a success. We've grown the team here in Estonia. We are very proud of hosting events like Robotex, which is you know, the fun competition between universities crashing their robots at the end of the month, things like that. And to us, keep up that high ICT focus. That would be my advice to the country of Estonia. And live big dreams, because that's at the end of the day what makes the money tick in, okay? Thank you.
Thank you so much. So thank you so much. This was a great fairy tale. I mean, Norwegian guy going to India, never finds anything interesting, going to China, not so interesting, and suddenly Estonia solving all your problems. But actually it seems that you never paid attention to previous lecturers. You have to grow very quickly, Steinar said, and Joachim said that, I mean, Estonians, there are so few of us, so how can you build and grow your business significantly based on only a few Estonians who know how to code?
First of all, I'm not growing the industry or the company on the few Estonians now. But if you look at in hindsight what's happened to Estonia, the people behind Skype, I worked at Ericsson when the real founder of Skype was working with me there. And basically, the real founder, the guy who made Nicholas, got the money in and funded Skype, he was sort of the brain behind it, and his. But the people who actually did the invention in terms of the technology is used as probably the best example of how Estonians have conquered the world ever, and probably very few nations can be more proud than Estonia than what happened. Look at that, 4 people. They built Skype, and it's true, they did build Skype. The technology came from Estonia, unquestionable, okay? Now, if 4 people can build something that Microsoft values so high that the founder can sell it twice, which he did, you know, then someone has done something tremendously smart, and that's my point. You don't have to be very big. You just have to have some smartness and believe that you can create anything, because anything is possible. And that's the kind of attitude you need in a team. You need really skilled people who like to expand ideas, who know that the core is something like this, but the value surrounding it can become so much bigger. And so that's what we do in ICD. We use our core technology on a control platform, and we build vertical after vertical after vertical.
So we have almost 5,000 viewers from Postimus channel right now. So I give you 30-second pitch time. What kind of companies you're looking at Estonia to collaborate? You will get probably a lot of offers tomorrow, or maybe even tonight.
No, it's not something I'm actively pursuing, because we tend to do our own business development ourselves. But any company who has a maritime focus, who has become a niche manufacturer of something that is hardware oriented, but would like to see if they can expand it by adding control systems, would in general be my best bet.
But it seems you're not really up to sky. I mean, you're not interested in satellites. I noticed on your pictures. You were talking about drones and lasers, but why not satellites? Because, you know, Estonia is very famous. We just launched our satellite. And
I saw it.
We would like to do good, crazy stuff with satellites, but you're not in a space guy in that respect.
No, but we have crazy stuff in space already.
So satellite
has several satellites.
So satellite companies still can contact you as well?
Absolutely, but the thing is that what they would provide most likely with respect to what I showed you now is satellite mapping, and that would be complementary to either Faster Imaging, who makes map engines, and then you could have photo overlays, or to Ocean Visuals as complementary information for the LiDAR laser maps. But you know, go for it. If you're out there, sure, why not?
Thank you so much. Thank you for your time. Give a big applause. So now we are really ready for coffee break. So please come back exactly 4:15, and we will have a very interesting panel next after coffee break. Thank you. So thank you for coming back. So you are very brave because it's Friday afternoon, almost Friday evening, and you still came back. So it means you are very interested about business development and innovation. So please be seated.
Finally, we meet you in person. Yeah.
So we will continue with our panel. So and we have a great 4 panelists here. We have, this right hand, we have a representative, I would say, from Silicon Valley, from California, Rainer. And from left hand, we have a representative from Norway. And of course, once again, Norway, and I would say Norway-Estonian mix as well. So first, we make introduction, more proper introduction of other participants, and then we're going to talk about how to realize innovation. So how to actually get profit out of innovation. So we already know Christian, but please introduce yourself, Nils.
Yeah, my name is Nils Stray. I am the CEO and also the founder of a company named Vestra, who are a Norwegian-based company, but we have production and also engineering in Estonia. We have, the activity has been running for 10 years now. So, started totally from scratch in Estonia 10 years ago.
Good.
Yeah.
Thank you. So, please.
Yes, I'm Jens Christian Harnes. I'm chairman of a family-owned company from Norway called Protex. We started actually some textile production in Estonia 20 years ago. Some years ago, 6 or 7, we decided to build up our own operation. We bought a very small factory with 20 employees. Today, as we counted this morning, we have now 270 employees. We are working with big, well-established brands in Norway, Sweden and Finland, and making products for them. In addition, we are launching own products and trying to explore something in the smart textile future. So that's us.
Thank you. Rainer?
My name is Rainer Sterfeld. I'm the CEO and founder of Planet OS. We have a company which is kind of distributed across Silicon Valley, Texas, and Estonia. What we do is we build a data discovery engine for sensor and machine data, mostly focused on data coming from robotic devices, be it from seafloor, the water column, sea surface, atmosphere, or space. My connection to Norway is we have 2 investors who are Norwegian, and Norway is an interesting market, perhaps in the later stages of the development of the company, and that's about it.
And as I learned today, I mean, Christian, this was you who actually introduced Rainer to investors.
Well,
not
perhaps.
true. Okay,
Yes,
you're too modest.
Well, yes. Norwegian modest.
Okay, so let's start. We have a topic from organizers. How did you realize your innovations? But I would put it maybe more in a more simple way. How you organize innovation in your company? What do you do? Do you have competition to pay extra salary for people who make innovation, or how do you organize innovation in your company?
It's a good question. We do have business development. I predominantly do business development half of my time. The other half is administrating.
I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. This thing might not be on.
Check the microphone.
Oh.
So you can put maybe a microphone.
No.
Not here, maybe here somewhere.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Don't worry.
Yeah, is it better now?
Can you hear me now? No.
Speak up.
Oops. It works. Sorry about that. Okay. Better now? Better now? Better now? Better now? Start dancing. I don't know. It's not me. Oh, here. Yeah. Yeah. No. Thanks. Can you hear me now? Okay. So I spend half my time on innovation, looking at building new companies. That's what I do. and that's what I love to do. The other half of me is doing the boring part, which is called administration, okay? Now, the way we work in ICD is that we have a person working with me on business development, and once we have found business ideas, we evaluate them. And it's a very small group of people. It's the chairman of ICD, me, and business development. That means the people who will be responsible for making a commercial living out of something that's a good idea, who look at it, and if we like it, we test it. And the reason we test it is because we want to make prototypes to see if it's actually sellable or not. We do that with everything. If you make something and the market doesn't want it, why did you make it in the first place? So to us, innovation is the key driver, and the way we construct it is that we set up projects. We look actively for funding. Soft money, we call it. That means it's money that you get in terms of grants against your own financing, not something that means that you have to sell 10%, 15%, or half a leg and an arm to a venture company. So seed money can be found in the weirdest places. You just have to look for it. Okay?
So you said market, but still, what about customers more precisely? How do you work? Is there any particular role of customers to build new machinery?
Well, we are an extremely customer-orientated company. So, yeah, I say that we are an extremely customer-orientated company. If we see a demand in the market or see a possibility in the market, we grab it. The market is actually the driving force, not the technology itself. If we see a possibility in the market, then we actually go for the solution.
So what do you mean by seeing? How can you see market opportunities?
Well,
do you have like a Google Glass in your office, or how do you see?
No, but if it's not in your backbone, if you not have the, well, I would say that some have it and some don't have it,
and you have it. I mean, you personally, you have it, yes?
I think it's extremely important. Either you innovate or you will die sooner or later.
Okay. So what about customers? I mean, you still kind of invite customers each Friday, giving a nice sauna and some cookies, or how you actually work with customers? How you know this?
Actually, it's funny you say that, because in our office in Norway we have a big kitchen, and Friday we make hot lunch, invite customer.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, but something is spoken or told from the customer side. But the best invention from my point of view is those you actually introduce. It's not already defined need from the customer side.
Okay, so you agree? So you also have this magical kitchen or refrigerator in your office?
Actually,
or?
if you come to me on a Friday, you'll
Yes.
get waffles. We
Oh,
have
really?
waffle day on Fridays.
So Friday is really kind of cool day in Norway, as I
It's
understand.
the day where we also wear jeans at
Oh,
work,
really?
at least the ones of us who have to wear suits
Okay.
the rest of the week. Yeah, stuff like that.
Okay.
No, it's true what he says. Innovation will occur when you take something that is existing and you end up with more than 1 + 1 = 2. And this is not so rare. We've actually seen that if we do add, like my magic powder or potion, whatever, would be the control systems and their ability to do new things, to make old things do new tricks. You know, old dogs will do new tricks. That's what we do with our software. And we enable things like these heave-compensated gangways that are safer to use than the existing ones, etc. Having said that, customers are very conservative in our industry. The oil and gas industry is run by a handful of giants on the supplier side, and then you have a multitude of oil companies on the operator side. And you have to sort of find your place in that equation, know your spot. And the best people in our industry are the innovators, because they are able to do the work that the big companies are not able to do themselves, even with their tens of thousands of staff, namely innovate, you know? And this is what he explained. You just find the really, really good ideas and you test them yourself. But you have to be a first mover at the same time. It's quite difficult.
Kjell Christian, you're doing amazing stuff in your company. You're producing smart textile. So how you gonna make business out of smart textile products? Do you already have a plan, or it's more like a innovation, sake of innovation itself?
Still, it's in an innovation phase, but of course we have a plan of making money. That's we usually have that for each product we try to launch. We are a small company. We have limited resources. We have to work kind of smart, and we think we are doing that. We are using our network to work through innovation projects. We are using Innovation Norway in some projects. We are using resource scientist organization like SINTEF in Norway. And we are trying to do something ourselves, of course, and we are also adding the customer in a very early phase. Like Nils says, we are very oriented against the customer needs. So we are doing the marketing and the sales part together with the development of the products. We hope that will give us success and help us to introduce some new products during next year. And yeah, we hope that is the model that will work. It seems like that. The customer likes it.
So how do you choose or select markets? I mean, you said you're relatively small companies. I mean, how do you actually know which market would be best for you? I mean, obviously you can sell stuff in Norway, but still, I mean, how you identify markets? Because at the end of the day, innovation, it's more or less product service, commercialization, not R&D.
Yep. Yeah, what to say about that? Let me see. We are approaching these markets in different ways. And sorry, I did forget your point, but maybe I will have a point in the end here.
So you remember we had discussion, I asked you, so who will be users of your new smart textile? And you said, okay, in Norway, and I kind of re-asked, why Norway? Why don't you go directly to New York, for example? From Oslo to New York, how many hours by plane? Maybe 4 hours, 5 hours, or something like this, but you could get a really big market right away.
We try to have a qualified guess about such some emerging markets. We are thinking which market will grow in the future, and we are addressing those markets, of course, through network and through certain needs we can see as well. I think we don't have these glasses either that Nils don't have either, but we work close to customers. We talk a lot with people, and we figure out what they need, and then we address that need. That's the way we are doing. That's why we are working with fish farmers in Norway, which is a very, very nice niche. They are growing very fast. We are working with healthcare, which is also a very, very central place to be, I think, for us in the future. That's a growth area as well.
So Reiner, I remember a couple of years ago, so you were, if I remember correctly, you worked for Skype.
ABB.
ABB, and then you said, okay, goodbye ABB. I'm going to found my own company. You had nice salary, you had nice position. Have you already found a customer in your company? Is it already in your business revenues?
We started 2.5 years ago. The first 2 years we spent solely on actually developing the software in connection with feedback from the industry, and the way we build products is we believe that the product has to be significantly better, at least 10 times better than anything out there. And so these kinds of things take time, specifically if you work with scientific computing and scientific data. With sensor data, it's very difficult. So And another thing, as Christian pointed out, is this is a very conservative industry. You also focus on oil and gas industry as our main target market. as they are the most comprehensive users of sensor data. And so if you come in as a potential software vendor and nobody knows you, and you just try to test and iterate as many consumer startups do, then you're just going to be laughed at. So you have to, there's a higher threshold of proving yourself. And so we spent a good amount of our first 2 years building that, and we started sales June this year. For that, we hired local people. It's oil and gas is a very highly personal, relationship-driven business. It's kind of a good old boy business. So the two folks we hired were really 20, 30 years in the business, and were able to call up anybody we wanted and get meetings. Just getting meetings is very hard. Once you have a meeting there, you get airtime. So in the last 3 months, in 4 months then, when we have been selling this actively, we've generated about 30 prospects. And I would say about 10 of them are serious, and 20 who knows. And these are the biggest players in the world. These are the Shells, the BPs, the Exxons, very, very, very hard companies to sell into.
Tell me more about this, how you build marketing intelligence. We met in San Francisco a week ago, basically. You had a fascinating story how you actually build your market intelligence by buying different super expensive reports about how oil companies are managed and what kind of positions and who are key decision makers. And explain us how you actually build this market intelligence about oil companies.
First, I must say that the real big difference maybe between US and Europe is that in US businesses, it's highly competitive. And for that reason, businesses are very, very proactive and very offensive even. You know, as a European, that's what I felt in the beginning. And European are more reactive or defensive, whichever you prefer, depends on the situation. And so for that reason, many businesses are built more based on first principles. So you look at the market trends, you look what is happening, you make a top-down analysis based on that, but then you take a real company, try to make a bottom-up analysis. And how do you do that with companies that are so protective about their information? How do you know, like, what are they using, who is the right person, and so forth? Luckily, there are intelligence companies out there that sell reports. Yes, they cost a lot of money. It takes an awful lot of time to draw an entire workflow of one single company, even one single division from the people and what they're using. Because even that, you know, you get introduced to some person in that company, he might not even know. It's kind of like it's kind of a university kind of approach, like one guy doesn't know what the other is doing in the other room. It's a highly protected kind of place. And so for that reason, we really take on every customer and we break it down to champions, decision makers, different workflows. And the software that we've built, we try to adapt towards their workflow, not vice versa. So I came from ABB and I saw a lot of that kind of, I would say not a very good practice where the customer was forced to change their way of working just because software was built like that, such as SAPs and the like Oracles and, you know, the big giants that were in the position of doing so in the 80s, but not anymore. And so we did that. So with that kind of approach, we were able to craft really targeted messages to the customer that resonates only with a couple of customers.
So basically, you raised money a couple of months ago. So most of the money you got from investors, you will spend on building marketing intelligence. So basically to get revenue out of your customers. Is that correct?
Yeah. Well, in the beginning, it was all product development. Now increasingly more marketing, messaging, positioning, whatever you want to call it. Sales costs go up. We haven't really, you see, the market is so full of different solutions that it's not like, oh, I'm going to order some print press and then you know, spray and pray. It's, you know, we spend our marketing money in a very different way. For example, when we started, we thought, okay, so this is a very slow industry. They're not going to talk to us. We don't own any data. Okay, how are we going to go about it? So we decided, let's build the biggest repository of well-organized oceanographic data. And let's build a community around it. Today we have 7,500 people, professionals signed up, and for that reason alone, that's the best marketing vehicle we could have ever asked for. Everybody knows us. Like I walk into any company, they know who we are. They don't know exactly what we do maybe yet, but then they know about us. That's a very big market validity. That's like Google it and then you find out. Then on top of that, what it gave us the same marketing effort that we did. We could have spent it on some trade shows or other things, but if we do everything that others are doing, we would be in the same place. So we have to do something very differently. And so for that reason, we did the open data thing. We were able to get a short feedback loop on our product development. We were able to build software that was already validated before we went to a customer. So now we go to a customer and they're like, where did these guys come from?
So it's a very interesting story, especially in Europe. In Europe, we don't get actually that innovation, it is actually to building marketing kind of intelligence. So in Estonia, I know it is kind of joke, I don't know if you're familiar with, if Estonian company wants to grow very fast, CEO will basically collect all directors, and we need to do something. We need to do really something crazy about in order to boost revenue. And in Estonian context, it would mean that Estonian executives really decide that they will aggressively, I would repeat, aggressively wait customers to call in. So, I mean, this is the way how we do here in Estonia. So how you actually grow your company? What do you do in order to, is it aggressively Friday making pancakes and waffles, or what do you do in order to actually push your growth in terms of revenue and new users and customers?
Yeah, it's cool. I think this works. First of all, address the right market. If you're addressing a niche that's on a downward trend, well, guess what? You could spend your money and energy on something else. Address something that's in a growth position. That's rule number 1. 2, try to be different. Like Reiner said, do not try to copy anybody else. Rarely copycats succeed. Dare to be different and address a pain. It sounds like it comes straight out of the textbook, but most companies do have hidden pains, and they have found reasons to go around in circles around their actual pain, And it's like my grandfather, he was in textiles too, believe it or not, back in the 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s, and built his little empire on textile mills, curtains, and stuff that was not available after the war in Norway. And he was also an innovator, and he made the print of what you call foam print on textiles. He patented that. And he also invented another thing that was kind of cool, flame protection, which is really close to what you do. Flammehemmende gardiner, also flame protective curtains. And guess what? Norway has wooden houses just like Estonia, but we have tons of it. We don't have brick houses like in England. We have wooden houses. And they tend to burn down in average 178 years they can get at the most, unless they rot, something like that. So by introducing something as simple as flame retardant curtains, according to health and safety, Norway reduced the number of homes burnt on average in the decade, I think this was 67 to 77, by something like 20%. That's a lot of homes, So there can be pain, and you can have the solution, and you just don't know it yet. And that's something that saved the community a lot of money too, I guess, the country. Yeah?
Jens Christian, so you're actually producing products for consumer markets, sportswear and textiles, etc. What is actually customer kind of engagement innovation for you? Do you build do you use social networks? Do you have any people who are working with YouTube videos in order to attract more market traction? What is your kind of unique way to engage customers? I went to your homepage. I did not see a pre-order button in order to already pay money for you, and it gets a really cool, smart textile product. So what do you do actually in order to get customers going?
We don't use the web page that much, as you can understand, because it's lousy. But we approach a lot of customers. We actually do a lot of hard work. We take part in conferences, we take part in exhibitions, we take part in a lot of activities actually. We are quite few, but we work a lot. And that's, I think, is maybe a small key to what we have been achieving. Through this activity, we generate a lot of leads, a lot of possibilities. Some of them you address, some you don't. Maybe we have left someone behind that we should have addressed, but that's how it is. We have no energy to do everything. Then we have to choose, and hopefully we are choosing the correct ones. That's my small thing about this is only hard work. That's the thing, I think.
Nils, if I may ask from you, let's play a game. I'm your boss, I'm your chairman, you are CEO. So I just have one task for you for 2015. Please grow company 50%, 50. So what would you do? Would you put more money into marketing? Would you put more money into product development? Or even more, what you said, Friday nights parties in your office? So what would be your action line? 50% next year I want the revenue growth. What would you do?
First of all, it's an extremely difficult question to answer. No, but well, as you know, we are in oil and gas, extremely conservative business.
So as I learned, they are not even 40 and 45 years old, as Steiner was entertaining. Maybe say even 60 and 65 years old at least.
But well...
And male persons as well. And male person, not females. Usually your customers are male persons.
That's for sure.
Yes.
Unfortunately, yes. But conservative customer, we can invent and we can, well, we can make fantastic solutions who are 50% better or 100% better than existing technology. But in the end of the day, the customer don't want to take the risk to buy it. So that's definitely a barrier, is a hurdle in our industry. And everybody wants proven technology. It's a hard task in our industry to introduce new technology. You can introduce invention, but new technology is extremely hard.
So what would you do? I mean, I'm very moody chairman. I want my 50% of revenue growth next year. What would you do? Would you consider a kind of similar model Christian is doing? Making joint ventures? Or taking money from Norwegian banks and making acquisitions? Maybe you acquire a Reiner company?
No, but we are used to a similar model to what Christian described, and that can work, definitely. I would also say that we're always looking also at the value chain. How can we actually grow in the value chain? How can we take more link in the value chain? You have the core technology. Can you add on a couple of links? Can you be closer to the end user? We are quite, as I said, we are market orientated, but we are also in a market who have, well, look at oil and gas now. We have a low oil price. Investment, the handbrake is on. Then you want to grow. What to do?
Very interesting question, actually. Yeah. I would like to ask from you. So
yeah.
We already discussed with you that you put it very nicely. Handbrake is on in your industry. So what are you going to do? Are you going to acquire some other companies? Are you going to send as a business or some other country? You don't like India, China, as I understand. But what do you do?
But honestly speaking, a situation like we have now in the market definitely create possibilities. Because the established way of thinking, the established structure is under pressure. So, well, how can, well, I put on my customers' trousers. It's actually smart to do that. And, well, how can I actually change my value chain? How can I cut a couple of links? how can I get a better price and get the same value? And if we act according to that, if we are prepared for that, we can it's definitely a possibility.
So basically what you say, maybe if you prepare today, in 1 year from now, it's a good time to acquire some companies in your vertical or whatever.
That's definitely an opportunity. We as a company, let's say 60% of our turnover is actually as a sub-supplier. And a part of our revenue is solution. We are selling solution. That means we are closer to the end user. So we are growing in this direction. So that's definitely a strategy we are using to grow.
So you are all founders of companies and CEOs. So I hope you sleep very nicely, but still, what is in your dreams? What is innovative company in your case? How you would see really in 5 or 10 years that your company is really driving on innovation and growing on innovation? So what is your, I don't want to say fantasy, but what's your dream? Rainer, maybe you're first.
Actually, that's a very good question as a segue to the previous question as well. You really have to know your market. You have to know what are the incentives in the marketplace. In oil and gas, you need to look at the oil price per barrel. You need to look at their geographies. And for Planet OS, our mission is to index the real world. That means that we ride on the trends where sensor data is outgrowing all social data in the next 3 years. That means data management, traditional data management, and I'm not going to go into technicalities, I'm going to bore you to death, but traditional data management is dead. You can forget about that. Sensor data becomes too big to move, but everybody's moving it, they're creating duplicates of everything. So there's a tremendous market force to just deploy more sensors and a human urge to understand how to control the planet, how to control your business, and make decisions accordingly. And we intend to be at the heart of every big company that has tons of assets to monitor. And the way you do that, which is why I said it's a good segue to this previous question, is you don't say that I want to be a platform. It's a nice place to be, a nice problem to have, but you need to build something very, very specific to a very specific user group. And you have to understand what are the linkages between those. And so if somebody would ask me if you want to, I want to grow 50% next year, then be my guest, take my job. I'm going to go and do something else. And because I want to grow maybe 1,000% over the next 3 years. And then it's a completely different way how you do that. So our dream is to be the most significant Internet of Things big data company, specifically focusing on sensor data. And it takes a lot of time to understand the workflows of our industries. And there's enough space for everybody to work in that, but we want to be the #1 in our space. And that would mean a company over $1 billion in market cap. And so in order to achieve that, it's not just we're going to offer that stuff, what I'm going to build in 10 years. I'm going to build something very specific, even if it's for left-handed fishermen in the beginning, but work my way up, and you have to craft that, and there are strategies for this, and there are books for this, if anybody's interested. But it's a very painful process, and there are far easier ways to make money.
Jens Christian, what's your growth ambition?
Well, we come from a business which is low tech. I think in the future something will happen in that production chain that textile consists. So I hope in the future that we are an integrated producer of textile products in Europe. I see that emerging technologies will help us to do such operations much easier. You see 3D printing in other industries. I think that will also come to the textile business. We want to be early adapters of such technology. So in the future, we will have a high-tech factory for textile products in Estonia, and that's I think it's a big dream. We will do our best to go that path and reach that goal.
Thank you. Niels, have you recovered from my question?
Oh, it's not easy. Now, what I would say that, well, what is the ambition? Everybody wants to grow, and if you are a startup, you can grow 1,000%, but if you are on a certain level, it's difficult then to grow 1,000% so fast. We are it's industry-based, it's investment in quite machinery, production equipment, whatever. So it's limited how fast you actually can grow. But I would say that my dream, one vision for the next 3 years is that, as I said, we have a long value chain. We are in the state, well, in Estonia, we represent something you can't find here. Actually, state of the art in Europe in technology. And we make a pretty good profit.
Thank you so much. And then final word is Christian for you.
10 years, that's a long time. That's like I can build probably and sell at least 2, maybe 3 companies in that time, you know. But that's not what this is all about, because I showed you ICD and I showed you all the subsidiaries, right, in my presentation. And if you look at it, the subsidiaries are really joint ventures, aren't they? And they are built with a certain purpose. But behind it is the notion and the strategy that we reuse the control design platform, our core operating system from the ICD software company, over and over and over again. Now, we started out when we restructured the ICD 4 years ago in the marine industry, where we grew up, sort of. Now we've been moving it slightly over to offshore, and then, as you will see, and I think I showed you, we are going subsea, which is really exciting, and that's an area you know a lot. But then we have been looking at other industry verticals, because let's face it, if you can control machinery in the marine industry, you can probably do it in the process industry. You know, all those factories out there using PLS or PLCs, you know. Secondly, we've been looking at automotive industry. There is no reason why we shouldn't succeed, you know, delivering tailor-made, specialized solutions in the same way we've done in the joint ventures like Seonix and Uptime. So my long-term dream and ambition is that we continue this model that we've set up. We build beautiful companies like Seonix, Uptime, and who knows, maybe we'll sell a couple down the line, but that the software remains and grows stronger with the help of the team here in Estonia. And, well, build a decent-sized software company. That's what we want to do.
Thank you so much. I have only one recommendation for you. As you said, handbrake is on. So why don't you discuss now during our next break, why don't you syndicate, I mean, all of you into one company? Maybe merger is your next big thing to do. You have a software, you have a consumer segment, you have machinery building. So why don't you put companies together and really conquer the world? Thank you so much. I'm really tempted. It was a great to have you here. And give a big applause for our very brave panelists, please. So thank you so much. We don't have time to take questions. We will do it after our next break. We will switch our seats. We are going to ask new people to sit here. So thank you so much. And we ask here, of course, Thorfinn Losvik, Urmas Lepik, Margit Ilblak, Rando Pärna for our final pitching, as it says in our agenda. So now it's your time to ask questions as well, because these people really can help you to develop new ventures and new companies. So please have a seat, take microphones. Yes, please have a seat here. And okay, we have, Margit is not here. So, maybe we start from you.
Yes.
We put microphone on you.
Good.
Yes.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. My name is Thorfinn Losvik from the NEC. NECC, the initial stands for Norwegian Estonia Chamber of Commerce. We are an organization, a Chamber of Commerce, basically provide a network for our members, exchange of information, new place to meet new contacts. NEC today is, we have around 70 members, and we'd love to have more. We have a board of NEC, which consists of 9 people. The founder of NEC, by the way, Mr. Paul Aschheim, sitting over there. He was responsible for starting NEC back in 2007. We meet 4 or 5 times a year. We organize seminars like this one, together with the Embassy and Innovation Norway and ES. We do presentations. We have company visits, and we do mingling, always with plenty of wine. Basically to provide a forum for our members to exchange information and get to know each other better. I would like to say, while I'm sitting here, that I've already mentioned that we'd like to have new members, but before we end this, let me be a bit unconventional and say that Anneli Abel, this excellent lady there, she's the lady who has made this day a success, I hope. So, Anneli, for all the good work, I want us to all give her a round of applause. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So please, next. So how can you help us making more business between Estonia and Norway, for example, or any business in terms of innovation?
Okay, thank you. Well, first of all, because of great speech of Steinar Korsmo, there is not much I can add to about what Seed Forum teaches to people. So, but if you liked what you heard, then that's about 2% of what an entrepreneur gets out of Seed Forum process once it gets into this. So it's like a tool for international fundraising and a tool for international business development. And we have this tool even before we have the tunnel to Helsinki, so you can use it now.
So how long it takes to get money from you?
Well, you don't get money from us, you get money from investors, because basically it's like a big club, and there are the entrepreneurs and the investors, and then they switch places every now and then.
Yeah, we get it, but how quickly we can do? If you start business with you, you have great partners, how long it takes to get money from you?
Well, if you have a good business, then basically if you go to one of the Seed Forum's investor conferences, which basically happens after every 5-6 days globally, then if you have a good business, you probably can sign the term sheets in a few days and get the money as soon as the transfers are made. So
okay.
If you have a good company.
Okay, so few days, this is really impressive. What is a success rate? How many companies actually get funded through your initiative?
Well, it's very difficult to say because we don't follow all of them, because we introduce them to investors in the investor conferences, and then they go from there. But what I can say is that through our training process, there has been companies like GrabCAD, Zero Turnaround, FitsMe, and many others. So who knows if they got the money because of us or not. So.
Okay, good. So please, next gentleman, please introduce yourself as well.
From Innovation Norway, Urmas Lepik. I think what's then special with Innovation Norway in today's setting is that we mainly then work with Norwegian companies, but also then Estonian companies, but then are owned by Norwegian companies. And I think that our biggest role is to actually accelerate growth and to get bigger profit in companies. And a lot of the work that we do here in the Baltic States is done to advisory. So we are looking into companies when they want to develop a solution where they have clients who have a need. Coming back to the client bit, very important, and to understand what the pains are, and that the whole process also to find out that they're actually willing to pay something for it. And then going on to creating your business, getting your business model in place, finding out how you're actually going to make money, how you can scale it, how you can go into new markets. So we are on 30+ markets, so we are not only in the Baltic States, we have 30+ offices all around the world. And then we have also the financial bit of Innovation Norway, and this is done by colleagues in Norway. We have offices in every district, fylke in Norway, and going in from the whole stage from entrepreneurs, having an idea, creating a business, becoming a growth company, going abroad, making success internationally, but also when it comes to groups, when it has to do with clusters, group of companies, And what we see a big value of this type of settings and what we are doing in Estonia, that is kind of the addition to Estonian companies, there is the cooperation. We see a lot of value in the cooperation that is created by these relations between Norwegian and Estonian companies.
So what do you see challenges between Norwegian and Estonian business cooperation? What are the main challenges or problematics you see?
Well, I think that one bit is, of course, to find out who you should cooperate with. I think that sometimes the problem is that you pick up the first guy in the corner of a street and say, let's cooperate, instead of figuring out who you should cooperate and then actually go out and find this person. When the kind of partner is in place, then it's a bit of a tempo difference between Norway and Estonia.
You mean Estonians are very fast compared to Norwegian ones? Or?
Yeah, Norwegians are very fast compared to Swedes. I'm born in Sweden, so I noticed that they are running faster than me. But coming then to Estonia, then you see the real sprinters. And then it's a question of communication to find out that, okay, I want to go in this speed, I want to do some thinking, I want to do some planning. Okay, so what is the common speed? And that needs a lot of communication and finding out this is the way we go forward together.
And you help to make the speed control from your side as well. Is it something you offer for companies, like through matching of companies or something like this?
Yes, we have understood that the part of the value that we can create is to create the corporations, but we have understood also now that a lot of the value we can give is in the work afterwards, to actually get the corporation going, to actually get something out of it, so everybody's happy, you get the solutions that both of you want to. So yeah, a lot of effort into that.
So in most of your business days, what you do, you're kind of repeating for Estonian businessmen, slow down, slow down, slow down, and then after a couple of months, you kind of really increase your business actions more and more, or how is it actually goes in terms of dynamics?
I would say that the best tip for Estonian businessmen is pick up the phone and call the guy in Norway.
Oh, really?
And don't write this huge email that no one in Norway reads.
Okay.
They are not
but
email
what about
readers
short emails? Short emails?
Yeah, but still, an email is an email and an inbox is an inbox.
So you have to call. You have to call, yes?
Well, if you want to have the action, I think that calling is the best way.
But definitely not Friday, as I learned from previous panel. So some other days.
Now, then rather go to Norway, have a meal, and eat waffles on Fridays.
Okay, good point. So back to you. So you do an amazing job in Norwegian Estonian Chamber of Commerce. So what you will see next couple of years, what will be most important things to do? Because as we learned, there are quite a lot of turbulence in oil industry and quite a lot of problems in economic growth in Europe. So what will be your agenda for next couple of years to bring in companies together?
More cooperation. And I think it's very important when you have adverse times that you need to meet more often. I completely agree with Urmas. Forget the emails. You have to speak to each other. And I think for the NEC, we will do more activities for our members. We will work very closely with the embassy, which is always good because then we have an impasse into the political developments as well as more clout. Whenever the ambassador invite you in the events, it tend to be more people coming than if NEC invites. So thank you very much, Rafin, for good work. So I think basically more cooperation, more events, get together more. And in adverse times, I think to then try to hide somewhere, it doesn't help you. You have to go out there fighting.
Thank you. So we have time for a couple of questions from audience. So this is the right time to ask questions. What do you want to know? These guys help you to build new business, to build business with Norwegian guys, very wealthy, very good business experience. Any questions? No questions? Okay, so no questions, everything is clear, and probably everybody think about your hint about wine, probably it's just behind the doors. But just maybe last words for you as well. So what do you recommend? I mean, how to establish solid business with Norwegian counterparts. So what is your recommendation? Should I now grab my telephone book and start calling 10 calls per day? Or where should I actually start? What is the first step?
Sorry, join NEC. Yes, first step. Yes. Yeah, you should join NEC. That's the first step.
So join NEC definitely first time. Then you get really good, I would say, really good consultancy how to really behave yourself working with Norwegian guys. But you wanted to add something.
Well, I would say that the main part is that you have to have good partners. You never know everything yourself. So, for instance, we are working a lot with Enterprise Estonia. Enterprise Estonia has their person, Margit, in Oslo, that is doing a lot of the field work, what is needed for Norwegian companies. But I think it's also that the cooperation is also very important in the work that we do here in Estonia. I just want to mention that one of our Annelies, Anneli Abel, can see that one way of making these connections is to make a good platform where to meet and talk to people.
So Anneli's a platform, yes.
Is creating the platforms. And of course, then it's important to have connections. And I have Anneli who's working a lot with connecting companies from Norway with companies in Estonia. So I think it's also in Estonia, it's very important to think of that you need partners, you need to talk to other companies. Everybody's not competition. Some should be your friends. And actually, who knows a friend in Norway? And that way, I think that's the only way you can create the connections with potential clients in Norway.
So it is quite friend-oriented business in that respect, as I understand. You have to know friends in order to make business.
And you need to talk to people.
Yeah, of course, yeah, call. I already get it. So Urmas, final word is for you.
Thank you. So my suggestion is that you sign up for Seed Forum, go raise a lot of money from a board, because there has been previous discussions here why investors should come here and why foreign employees should come here. Well, I tell you, if you don't go outside and bring the money home, then they come here and marry your girls. So you will be poor and with no girl. So sign up, go get money and come back home. So.
That's good, Pitch. Thank you so much for your time. Let's make a big applause for this very brave panelist as well. So we are very grateful for our supporters. NEC first. Join all NEC. You will get more credible insights how to make business in Norway as well in Estonia. So definitely we are very thankful for Norwegian Embassy. Thank you, Ambassador, for being here with us. Innovation Norway, so who is doing great job not only here in Estonia but also in the Baltic states. And of course Enterprise Estonia, who has been really generous enough to supporting our event today. Thank you so much for being here, and I hope wine is served outside, and have a really great evening, Friday evening here in Tallinn. Thank you.
Thank you.